You've been asked to put together a presentation for a report. You've been asked to create a presentation for a college course that you're taking. You may have even been asked to put together a eulogy. And it might be daunting and stressful, but today I'm going to help you to put together a really solid speech, whether it's an informative speech or a persuasive speech. Hi, my name is Dr. Denise, and I have been teaching public speaking courses now for nearly 18 years. I've taught at a number of institutions in the Maryland area, including the University of Maryland and Prince George's Community College and the University of Maryland Global Campus. So let's get started. Let's talk about the three major components that are included in a speech. And they are the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So let's begin with the introduction. The introduction begins with an attention getter. An attention getter is really important because that is what pulls your audience in. That's what grabs their attention and keeps them motivated to listen to you. So an example of an attention getter might be a rhetorical question, a metaphor, an analogy, a startling fact or statistic, or it could be a wonderful story. And then following that attention getter, you might want to add your greeting, then your name, and then your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is basically telling your audience what they're about to hear. And then following the thesis statement, you should have your speech preview, which is information that tells your audience what they are about to hear. Okay? So far I have given you the attention getter, the greeting, your name, the thesis statement, and the speech preview. These are 5 components that are in the introduction. All right, so now that we've talked about the introduction, let's talk about the body. Now, if you've got a speech that's 4 to 6 minutes long, you may have 3 or maybe 4 subtopics within the body of your speech, and you break it down. So my sister, Simone Alexis Erskine, passed away nearly 10 years ago. And I am the eldest. She was born after me. I have 3 other siblings actually, but she and I grew up, we were very close. And so I use the eulogy that I delivered at her funeral as an example of how I delivered an informative speech about her. And so for that speech, I broke it up into 3 parts. So I wanted to talk about who she was. She was amazing. She was smart, beautiful, funny, someone's wife. She had 4 children. She decorated cakes for a living. She was also a project manager. She was all of these things. And another subtopic that I included in the speech about her life was what she experienced in her life, her debilitative suffering that she experienced most of her life. She suffered from Crohn's disease, and eventually she would die from leukemia. So that's another thing that I talked about. And then finally, I talked about her legacy, what she left behind, the memories, the laughter, the joy that she brought us. She was so funny. If she had only survived, I do not doubt that she would have been a major comedian. She was that funny. So, but these are 3 topics, but you've got to have transitions in between. You have to let your audience know when you're going to move to a new topic. You can't just start talking about it. You have to be organized, you have to be fluid, you have to be conversational, and you've got to make sense. And so having transitions helps your audience to follow you as you deliver this presentation. And so, for example, when I talk about what it was like for us growing up as sisters, who she was, now I've got to let the audience know that I'm moving to a new topic. So I might say something like this. Now that I've told you who she was and what she meant to all of us, I want to talk to you about the experiences that she had growing up, suffering from Crohn's disease, and then eventually dying from leukemia. It was an awful disease. It's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone. So now that I've talked to you about who she was and what she experienced for most of her life, let's talk about her legacy and what she left behind. Do you see the way that I made those transitions? That's what you have to do with your speeches. You have to be fluid, you have to be organized, but you've got to make those connections and they have to flow, and those transitions help you to do that. So after your body, you've got to have your conclusion. And so basically your conclusion is a review of your major points. So, you know, she was amazing. She was all of these things. She was funny, she was a wife, she was a mother. We grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn. She suffered, we know she suffered, but she's in a better place. But she left behind a wonderful legacy. That's an example of a conclusion. But at the end of that conclusion, you don't end the speech with, "Thank you for listening, have a nice day," or "That's it." That is not the way you end a speech. Let me give you an example of a clincher. And a clincher is connected to the thesis statement. And so the clincher is one in which it leaves your audience mesmerized. They are more connected to the topic than ever before. The ending is memorable. Amazing. So that's what you want to do with your clincher. And so an example of a clincher could be like an attention getter, a rhetorical question, a startling fact or statistic, a story, a metaphor, or an analogy. So at my sister's funeral, her homegoing, I said this: "I know that you knew her. I know that you loved her. But as her sister, I will always think of her. Every year, every month, every week, every day, every hour, every minute, every second, every single moment of my life, until the sun ceases to shine, until the end of time." So that's my clincher that I delivered at her homegoing. And it was one that has stayed in my heart, and I can never forget it. And so I hope this information that I shared with you helps to create some context for why organizing your speech is so important for creating a listenable speech. And so let's talk about some other things that you need to have in your speech. And this particular tool helps to establish your credibility, and they're called oral footnotes. So for a speech such as this, remembrance of my sister Simone, I might say, according to Psychology Today, that wrote an article in 2022 about sisterhood, we all need sisters. Sisters help us to overcome loneliness. They give us a sense of self because they're a sounding board. They make our feelings meaningful because they're really listening and they're giving us feedback. Another example of an oral footnote for a topic such as this might be, according to Forbes, they say that sisters help you to have a sense of accomplishment to a certain extent because they help you to feel positive about the achievements that you have made. They also help you to talk out ideas, to express yourself, and they also give you a sense of validity. They give you a voice, and that is very comforting, especially if you might be experiencing stress. Having a sister helps you to give you that feeling of comfort. And so those are two examples of oral footnotes that you need to have in a speech, especially if you want to establish credibility. All right? So let's go over the things that we've talked about so far that you need to have in an informative or a persuasive speech. So there is the intro, the body, conclusion. You have the attention getter, the greeting, your name, the thesis statement, the speech preview, followed by the body, which has transitions. Then you have the conclusion, and then the clincher at the end. You have oral footnotes, and there's got to be one more thing that you've got to have. I think I've just named 9 so far. The 10th one would be a visual aid. You need to have a visual aid. And so visual aids help your audience to remember what you're saying long after the speech is over. They help to make connections to their own lived experiences, their own mental models and categories of reasoning and meaning making. And so they help your audience to understand and also to become more engaged with the words that you are saying. And so an example of a visual aid that I might use for a speech about my sister would be this one. I hope you can see it well. You see her smile? Amazing. So that in a nutshell is how you put together a speech. And I know that you're going to be successful as long as you use this method. And I've been using it for a very long time. And I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to be a part in your planning and organizing of what I know will be an amazing speech. Until the next time, I'll see you soon on the inside. One love, Dr. Denise.